Welcome to Women and Resistance, a powerful podcast where we honor the courage, resilience, and revolutionary spirits of women across the globe. Hosted by Fubara Eneli Esquire and Adesoji Iginla, we uncover untold stories of defiance against systemic oppression, whether colonialism, racism, sexism, or economic injustice. From historic icons like Winnie Mandela and Fannie Lou Hamer to today's trailblazers, we shine a light upon those shaping a more just world. This is a call to honor the past, embrace the present, and build an empowered future. Greetings, and welcome again to Women and Resistance, our regular podcast where we showcase the contribution of women to the resistance and African liberation. I am your host, one of your co-hosts, Adesoji Iginla, and my co-host, Fubara Eneli Esquire, will be taking you through today's very remarkable person, and none other than Queen Nanny of the Maroons. So, before we dive into the life of Queen Nanny of Maroons, it's important to underscore why she is important to our conversation. She's considered a freedom fighter that was way before her time. She fought the enslavement of Africans in what would now be called modern-day Jamaica. She also formed a community off the back of that. The community is known as the Maroons in the mountains. So today we're going to be looking at how that was, first and foremost, so important in its time and what lessons we can learn for our times today. And so, Queen Nanny, question is, who is she?
It is night in the Blue Mountains. The year is 1734. There is no noise save the occasional hoot of an owl or the shriek of a bat enjoying its evening feast. A visitor might think the place uninhabited, but this is a warrior's camp. Maroon soldiers and lookouts are posted along every ridge, high up in the trees, behind every shadow. They are cloaked in darkness and covered in branches, hiding among the lush foliage. A few hours before morning approaches, we hear the tramp, tramp, tramp of black British boots on maroon soil. The British soldiers in their bright red uniforms and big black boots with their loud laughter and disregard for their environment are a stark contrast to the Maroon soldiers. The British have come to capture what they feel is rightfully theirs. Escaped or never captured Africans who they view as slaves, the rightful property of the British government. One of these soldiers, well, he comes to rest in a clearing, puts his gun down and leans back against a tree to catch his breath. He looks up to the sky, enjoying the peace and quiet, and wondering how much longer before they reach the elusive Nanny town so they can finally burn it to the ground. Suddenly, the tree he was leaning against comes to life, and with a whispered word in a language he had never heard before, his throat is slit. Who am I? I am Nanny, Grand Nanny, Ohima of the Asante, the great progenitor, daughter of the ancient, spirit unbroken, fire undimmed, mistress of metaphysics, weaving power from the unseen, Obiya, priestess, whispering secrets to the wind and the waters. I am Queen Nanny, warrior queen, fearless mother to all. I am she who dances with spirits and commands the storms. I am she who captures bullets, oh yes, and sends them back with fury. Guerrilla tactician, unseen shadow, striking with the force of thunder. Nanny, the great hypnotist. My voice bends the wills of men. My eyes hold the weight of eternity. Healer of the wounded, mender of souls. I brew life from leaves, whispering the wisdom of the forest. Queen of the pumpkin planters, from the earth I feed nations, from my hands I build a kingdom free and fierce, revolutionary flame, unyielding force, first to defy, first to triumph, leader of the first great reckoning, the victorious cry of the oppressed. In the new world, I carved a path of freedom with fire and steel. I am Nanny, quintessential role model, forever eternal, forever guiding. My spirit rises with the smoke of battle, with the rhythm of righteous drum beats, calling to the highest ideals of humanity, ancestors and God, reverberating in the hearts of those who dare to stand. I am Nanny, and I live forever in you.
Nope.
So now that we're done with that, let's get this out of the way. That is essentially how the Maroons that we're going to talk about in Queen Nanny could hide themselves in the trees, in the foliage, in the mountains, and wreak havoc on the British soldiers. And they were the first ones in the New World to have a successful revolution. How are you doing, Brother Adesoji?
I am fine. And I'm honored to be in the presence of the Queen of the Maroons. Question is, how are you?
It's a simple question with not such a simple answer. There are many stories told about me, of course. My origins have not been easy for people to pin down. Some accounts say that my father, who was a prince, traveled from Ghana, modern-day Ghana. I am of the Akan ethnic group, and that he traveled with his children, including 7 sons and 2 daughters, and that we arrived free in what the Tainos, who used to be the original inhabitants of that area, called Jamaica, and that we came to check on our people that we knew who had been taken there. That is one account. And in that account, I was never enslaved. Another account says that my father was already there, and then I was born. Also that I was never enslaved. Another account is that there were some ethnic wars going on, and I and my siblings were captured. And back then, the most, in their words, unruly captives were taken to Jamaica, because that was a place where it was truly a God-forsaken place in terms of how they treated my brothers and sisters as they enslaved us. And it is said that we were spread out, but my sister and I were at the same plantation. And one time we had made plans to escape, and we did escape. But my sister was carrying a baby, and the baby made a sound. And so they captured my sister.
This was Sister Sekuzi.
And so there are some who say she is the mother of the Jamaicans, and I am the mother of the Maroons. There are some stories that, there are many stories. There are stories about even my name. Some people say I was named Abina Pokwa. Some folks say I was known as Sarah Matilda Rowe, and others recognize that Nanny was a term of endearment, a term of respect, that I came from a matrilineal tradition, as did many of the others who were in Maroonage with me. And Nanny was a term of endearment. And at some point, not only was I known as Nanny, I was known as Grand Nanny.
So, you are listening to Women and Resistance with Aya Fubara Eneli Esquire and Adesoji Iginla, where we honor the voices of women who have shaped history through courage and defiance. If you're finding these stories inspiring, take a moment to subscribe, share, and support this platform. Together, we amplify the voices that deserve to be heard. Now, back to the conversation. Where would you say the idea of creating a Maroonage came from? Was this the undying spirit within Nanny, or it was brought on by the situation she witnessed in Jamaica, or it's basically saying, I will not be enslaved to the British.
Well, what do you think it is?
I do not want to offer my thoughts on it yet, because here is what I don't want to do. Modern historians will often project what they consider to be myth-making on a situation that is settled, and that becomes the running narrative. She is not spared that treatment either. So I would not want us to use this podcast to underscore, to continue in that tradition. So it would be, for one, for the person involved to actually voice their own experience. Because the point of this interaction is so that people understand that every of the women we're treating in the course of our conversations have their own narratives, and those narratives should be brought to the fore.
Let me start by saying this. What I did as a woman, the British had never seen before, because they treated their women as less than human beings. They could not understand a matrilineal society. They could not understand the power of a woman, and they could definitely not understand the power of a Black woman. As a result, although there are stories and accounts that were written about my brothers in the annals, in the British annals, there were really only 4 mentions of me. Because for these spineless brutes to admit that their desires, their greed, their quest to conquer my people was thwarted by a woman, a Black woman nonetheless. And I was not a big Black woman, as they would say. What is written is that I was actually small in stature, and I was wiry. I was slim. The pictures that are seen of me now, the renditions, the drawings, is akin to what was done with Jesus in the portraits that some of you now see as Jesus. There were no pictures taken of me. So that rendition that you see of me that is now on the $500 note in Jamaica was actually of a woman who is still alive today. She was a student at this school. And when the principal asked for students to come up with their renditions of who Queen Nanny in their minds would be, a young man named Claude Gay asked her to be his model. And that is what the image that you see is mostly based on.
Interesting.
So they tried to erase me from history. And the reason I could never be killed off was because of our oral traditions. But just like you might take the Bible, and you have 4 different so-called disciples who witnessed the same thing with Jesus, supposedly, but all had slightly varied accounts of the same event, there are many stories about me. What we do know about me, what you should know about me, is that in my heart, to the question you asked, beats an unquenchable desire for freedom. We all have it in us. There is a reason why we use drums in our African societies. And when we came to Jamaica, we kept up our African traditions. In fact, you go to the Maroons today, and you will still see so much from the Akans, from the now modern day Congolese, from the Igbo, from the Ashanti. You will see it all. You will still see those traditions. But there's something about the beating of the drums that quickens the spirit and quickens the heart. And you cannot stay caged. You will escape or you will die trying. And so in the hearts of my people, as we hearkened to those drum beats, as we hearkened to the voices of our ancestors, because we never forgot our traditions, we were never going to be captured. We were never going to be the slaves of other people. We were going to live free, and we were going to teach our children to live free. And we knew from some of the Tainos that we met when we got there, we heard from them the brutality of these people. We knew from them that so many of their people had been decimated, and they were a peaceful people. We knew that these white men do not listen to peace. They do not want peace. And so we decided we will fight with everything. And we did.
Yes, did you did? Because the Asian Revolution would also employ some of the guerrilla tactics that was made famous by Queen Nanny, yourselves, and your fellow Maroonage. Now, the thing is, how did the idea of guerrilla warfare enter the conversation with Queen Nanny?
To ask that question would be to take me back to the shores of my people, to go back even and look at our masquerade dances. We know how to communicate with the animals. We are one with nature. We respect nature. We get wisdom from everything in the universe. And so being in the Blue Mountains where we built our areas, and I will come back and tell you some of the discussions that have been had about where even the terminology Maroons comes from. It was second nature, maybe even first nature, to understand how to blend in with our environment and to use our environment for our protection. See, because we are not at war with our environment. Wherever the white man goes, he destroys. Plants die. Water is poisoned. Animals become extinct. Human beings die. Diseases, wherever they go. But our tradition was to be one with nature. And so when we're in this situation where we must survive, of course we must look to what we know, which is nature. And so it made perfect sense to blend in with our environment. I have so many stories to tell you. Do you know that in these big Blue Mountains, there are so many areas with waterfalls? And there's a particular area where like two bodies of water meet and it brings up this mist. It almost looks like a pot boiling, water boiling. And what we would do when we knew that these ignorant British soldiers were coming is we would put some leaves right in that water in that area. These leaves had the ability to almost serve like chloroform would. You guys know what that is today.
Yes. The sleeping gas.
When they get up there and they're right near that ridge, they inhale it, they look, and they all start falling to their death. We always save at least one. So that one can go back and tell the stories. So they would tell stories of the 10-foot tree started strangling people. Yes, let them tell those stories. And they would tell stories of a pot boiling with no fire. They would talk about being hypnotized. We used what we had available because we were one with nature. And our ancestors would tell us what to do, and the animals we would follow. Listen. We could watch and understand how the animals could move without making a sound. And we emulated them. Meanwhile, here are these people with red coats and big boots tramping down, making all the noise because their ignorance precedes them. They are so full of themselves. And yes, I, Queen Nanny, with the ancestral knowledge and the gifts I had as a healer, gifts I remembered from watching my people, gifts that were brought to my memory by my ancestors. I was able to lead my people and to show us how we could remain a free people. But not even just that. Let me tell you what we did. We terrorized those plantations. The nighttime was our time. And by the time they could figure out what was going on, they had to flee from those areas. And they kept sending in more troops. And before 35 years, I believe, before the American Revolution and long before the Haitian Revolution, we, the so-called Maroons of Jamaica, we defeated. We gave the British such a hard time. They had to come to us with treaties. But I'm not so happy. I'm not so happy.
Why so? Because some will say treaties was some sort of compromise on their path. That's okay.
The treaties were the compromise on their part, but let this be a lesson to all of you, my children. You can never make peace with people who don't even know what peace is. Any paper you sign with them is worth nothing. What it does is it lulls us to sleep. We forget our ways. We forget to stay in a defensive mode. We forget to stay connected to our ancestors. And then when they have gotten us to a place where we may even have become dependent on them, maybe even now we're marrying them, then they strike. Ask the Native Americans. Oh no, ask my brothers, because one of my brothers, Cujo, he was the leader of the Maroons that were called the Leeward Maroons. I was the leader of the Maroons called the Windward Maroons. And me and my brother, Kwa, we were in the same area, but slightly separated, but we worked together. And after the British convinced my brother Cujo to sign a treaty with them in
39 first? 1738. 1738, 1739.
And then based on that, they now had the audacity to come to where we were. And my brother Kwa, against my wishes, he signed a treaty with them. I never signed a treaty with them. Even after they burned down Nanny Town in 1734 and claimed that they killed me, I did not sign a treaty. But 1740, they came back. And they eventually gave me first 500 acres for my people, eventually 1,000 acres for my people. But here's what happens when you sign these treaties with these people. Peace treaty, they don't know the definition of peace. They don't want peace for us. They don't even know peace for themselves. They're a warmongering people at war with everything. You know what that peace treaty said?
Infamous.
The reason why we continue to fight ourselves, we continue to deal with dividing and conquering. Can you imagine that a place that used to be a safe harbor for those of our brothers and sisters who escaped? As a matter of fact, we would go and rescue them from these plantations.
Okay.
Now, we sign a document saying not only will we not harbor anybody who runs away and comes to us, we will actually return them. And that when any other perceived enemy is attacking the British, we will work with the British to defeat them. And for what? These are the same people who just a few years ago were giving bounties to the British soldiers if they could come back with a pair of ears of my people. You see the same thing you see with the Leopold, right?
In Congo,
Come back and cut off people's hands, maim people. This is their mindset. And we signed those treaties. And we ended up having to go to war again with them. But at that time, we have weakened ourselves, because we had forgotten our ways. We had forgotten some of the very integral parts of who we were
as a people.
And so today, all of those towns, now Nanny Town called Moore Town, St. Charles Parish, St. Antonio Port. What are these names?
See what you're saying. Those names are essentially a rewrite of history. It underscores the point of who was there, not so much as what transpired, but who was just there and kept us in chains.
As soon as they took over a place, they named it after them. They write you out of history. I did get married. Some say I was married 2 different times. I did have children.
Did you?
Yes. The Rowe family, ROWE family of Jamaica today, claim direct descent from me. They claim that Swipolemento, who was my second husband, later baptized. Can you imagine what has happened to my people? anglicized, took on the anglicized name of Rose Harris and was called Rose, and then eventually Ro. And because I was married to him, that at one point I was known as Shanti Rose or Maro. Oral tradition states that Ro, R-O, eventually became R-O-W-E.
Mm.
And many Maroons, many of us changed our African names for European ones as we converted to Christianity, forgetting that it was our form of spirituality that saved us all those up in the mountains. Oral history says that we had 3 children, 2 sons, Kojo Ro and Ampong Ro, and a daughter that was also called Nanny. So where did that term Maroons even come from? We always have to ask ourselves, who is naming us? Who is naming us? So one group says Maroon comes from Marano, and they say it was a derogative Spanish-Portuguese term that actually pertained to Israelites and calling them wild pigs. People have written all kinds of things, and some of the books that have been written about me, I have to tell you, are absolutely nonsensical, but they're out there anyway. And I don't quibble with them because it's still important to read them and to still remember what we accomplished. You know, one of the legends about me is that I used to be able to capture.
I knew you were going there.
I used to be able to capture bullets
with your buttocks.
with my buttocks and then fire it back at them. Now, some people say that's not possible. And I say, but you believe that one man took a stick and hit the Red Sea, and the Red Sea parted. All the water went one side to the other, and there was open ground, and 1 million people walked through, and it wasn't until they finished getting out on the other side, then it closed. If you can believe that, why can't you believe that I caught bullets?
We're talking about a woman now, so it's highly improbable because the world is not geared towards centering women in the grand scheme of things.
Well, it is time to center us because there's nothing that we can't do. We push the babies out. What is impossible for a woman? What is impossible for a Black woman from whom the entire human race came from?
Yeah, but society is geared towards patriarchy. So the notion of having a woman centered. Sorry?
Whose society? Because just like we created our space, that maroon space, and dictated what we wanted that space to look like, how we would function. Even today in Jamaica, they would tell you that amongst the Maroons, those who still claim their lineage from the Maroons, that they are a more egalitarian society than the rest of Jamaica. They respect the power and the rights of women. Now, another way that the thing that they said this is where Maroon, the word, came from, is that it came from Cimarron. Again, Cimarron, wild animal, wild savages, those kind of things. We don't care. Call us whatever you want. It is what we call ourselves that matters. So I will not necessarily call myself Nanny of the Maroons, although I understand that in this Western-dominated culture, that is something that helps people locate where I was. But what it also is the ways that we use language to diminish who we are. We allow other people to diminish us with language because they do not use those kind of language or words for the people that they esteem highly. So as we resist, as I resisted, it was about gathering, marshaling all of our powers to figure out how we could be free. So I'm popularly known as what they call an Obeah woman. They spell it O-B-E, will most likely spell it O-B-I, Obiya, which is actually Igbo. Obiya, Obi, heart. Obiya, your heart. I was deeply connected heart to heart with my ancestors. I was known as a powerful practitioner of African spiritual traditions. And today, they have told us that our traditions are bad. and we've abandoned it all. But did you hear me say that we could talk to the animals? Did you hear me say that we could look to the sky and read what was coming? We could watch the way the birds were flying and understand that something was amiss, because the animals have senses that we don't have. Even today, you can go and see when there's a tsunami, the animals take off long before the human beings have a clue. They take off for high grounds. We studied all of those things. I blended that indigenous knowledge with what they call resistance magic. But it was really being in tune and encouraging my people to also be in tune. We all have it in us if we are looking to ourselves and not to others to save us. But I wasn't crazy. I understood the power of their weapons. So I and my brothers, we found a way. We knew that above anything else, these people worshipped greed. Money, wealth was their God. And so we found some of them were Jewish, but there were others. And we were able to raid plantations, take things from there, and then trade it with these people for guns and bullets and black powder. Yes, we had our machetes attached to our sticks, gave us a lot of leverage. We could do a lot of damage. Yes, we fought guerrilla warfare. The paint you see on my face, there were ways that we blended in with everything around us. But we also knew that we had to be tacticians. And so we found ways, either raiding their own stores and also through trading with other greedy white people who really did not care who got killed in the process, as long as they made
a profit.
And that is a message for my children today across the world. You in Chicago killing your brother with a gun and bullets that you didn't manufacture. You in the Congo shooting down a family with guns that have been handed to you by people who actually just want to decimate your people. Think again. Think again. The resistance has to be against the people who will never, they will never let us be in peace. And that is why we took no prisoners. We killed them all and always sent one back to tell this was psychological warfare. We wanted one to go back and tell the story so that others would have fear struck in them. In fact, there's a story that I can tell you. Not a very well-written book either, but there was a Lieutenant Thickness, and he said this: now in the action, in quotes, now in the action from which I had been falsely charged with flying from the fight in panic, I was a raw, unexperienced boy. It was the first time I ever had been exposed to the fire of an enemy. And when I found myself surrounded by a volley of shot poured down from the side of a steep mountain, coming from an invisible enemy, and when I had not even a weapon of defense in my hands, and saw my men bleeding at my feet, at which instant more than 2/3 of our party instantly ran away, I knew too that the fire came not from a generous enemy. Now he's going to make us the enemy, even though they were coming after us. He said, there was no more probability of conquering the enemy than there was of removing the mountain on which they were concealed. He wrote this in his old age because he was ridiculed for running away from a woman-led army, and he was trying to make his case. He went on to say this in an official document. He said, I was frequently sent out with 4 or 5 and 20 men in search of the wild Negroes at the assembly of the island, because they allowed 70 pounds for every pair of wild Negroes' ears, male or female, which were brought in. In other words, these people had a policy of genocide. And I'm telling you, my children, today, that policy has never changed. And any of you who don't believe it, I don't know what to say to you. because the history is there for you to study and to know. So yes, I use protection and rituals. Do you want to see the first cell phone in Jamaica?
Go on.
Would you like
Yes.
to see that?
Yes, go on.
It's an obeying. We will use this. We will send out messages. To them, it sounds like the wind, but we understood what the messages were. It's called different things. It's used in different parts of the continent, Africa.
Yeah.
But
Very
this
much
was the
so.
first cell phone.
Very
And we
much
would
so.
send messages, and the ignorant ear will hear but not hear. That is the science and technology we had. You think you're doing something now? Now they know everything you're doing. They have all your information.
Social media.
Like the Navajos, we had a code. We must return to these times. You know what? I'm very happy that the books that write about me are very incomplete, because everything does not need to be known. Because once it's known, it loses its power.
Yeah. Very much so.
Now, because they understood what we were doing with nature, they gave it a name: guerrilla warfare. And what are they using now? But of course, the Vietnamese taught the Americans a very good lesson
Listen,
using the same. But we were the original people. But now you look at, when you see any of their uniforms now of their soldiers, and
camouflage.
now they go the brown and green, the camouflage. Remember what they used to wear? They used to wear red coats. That is how stupid they are. A red coat. What is it? What is the color of a target? A color of a target is red. You come out in the. That's how stupid they are. But look at what they've done. They have taken our knowledge and now applied it and now using it against us. We have to go back to our knowledge, and I'm telling you, we, the ancestors, we will show you even deeper things. We are the original people. All they do is copy and try to kill us. Okay, I used herbs. We were able to heal ourselves. Even today, if you go and talk to elders still practicing, as they would say, Maroonage, you know they still speak in a language. Do you know the language?
Which language is it?
Cromanti. Have you heard that language? There's a gentleman, an old, he's an elder now. He had a lot to say. He said, Pia, she was not a woman to be messed with. He understood, and some of them still speak the language, but it is going extinct, and we have to go back to reclaim that language.
Because you often know that in languages lies the secret of the people. So if you lose a language, you essentially lose that train of thought, that history.
Yes. One time, the British had really besieged us, and my people were hungry. That was the first and only time I thought of, well, I can't watch everybody die of starvation. For a second, maybe we surrender. But I knew that these people were wicked people. And my ancestors said, go to sleep. Sometimes when you have too much going on in your head, go to sleep.
Sleep, yeah.
And yes, Cromanti, there you go. And so, as I slept, I woke up in the morning. I went to a higher side of the mountain, spending time with my God and my ancestors. I put my hand in this little thing I tied around my waist. I had to put my hand in there, and I felt some seeds. I pulled the seeds out. They were pumpkin seeds. Planted right there and then. I planted that seed. By that day, the seed was growing. Within a week, the whole hill was covered with pumpkin. My people could eat and my people could live. Yes.
And so that's how Jamaica became famous for pumpkin seeds.
Yeah, and that is why I'm the queen of the pumpkin planters. Those pumpkin fields, they never run out of food.
Wow.
So, like I said, there's a stupid man, Captain William Coffey, known as Captain Sambo. What a perfect name. Who took credit for killing me in 1733. during one of our many bloody engagements. Remember that first Maroon War started in 1720, and we fought it until 1739. And let me tell you, when I tell you we showed them pepper, the white plantation owners were running from that side of Jamaica.
The untamed side, they called it.
We put out the message that other people could beat Britain. Because at that time in the world, British had the most powerful army in the world. But here you have people that you called wild savages, some of them led by a woman. And you are fighting from 1720, all of your ammunition, to 1739. You can't get rid of us. We should have continued that fight. My brother should never have signed
those treaties. Yeah.
Can you imagine now we were capturing our own brothers and sisters and returning them to the white men to abuse them? That is this whole divide and conquer. We now learn not to trust ourselves. When you see each other, you don't know, is this one who is going to harbor me? Or is this one who is going to betray me? And somehow you buy into a notion that you could possibly ever be safe when your safety is dependent on betraying those who look like you. How? But think about it. How are we still doing that today?
Yeah, so you gain one enemy that you're sure of. But the other enemy, you're actually beside them, but they know they can't even trust you. So you've lost both ways.
It makes us very weak. Because we can't unify. And if we can't unify, then they can always oppress us.
So we're looking at the likes of Baron Dano.
And you are actually looking to them for protection. Yes. That is why, for those of you in America, you will see, my people will call them buffoons. You will see these buffoons in the so-called White House, kicking and laughing and licking the boots of a person who does not even see their humanity. But it didn't start today. And it won't end tomorrow if we won't learn our lessons. I was not happy with Qual. But what had been done had been done. We did eventually get our land. So in 1976, I was elevated in their minds to one of the national heroes
of Jamaica.
There are 7, and for them who had forgotten that they all come from a woman, they had to be convinced that at least one woman should be one of those 7 heroes. But remember this though, in the United States of America, do they ever call a founding mother?
Yeah.
Do they ever talk about a hero, a heroine? Do they?
Our founding fathers?
It's founding fathers. Till today in Jamaica, we have a female prime minister. But America, you're still rejecting your women. Is there a woman on any money in the United States of America?
Harriet Tubman was at one point slated to be on there. But we know in light of...
Slated, I believe it's now maybe going to be 2030. If there is still an America, a United States of America. And if the offspring of the same brute that I fought in the mountains of Jamaica do not completely take over, maybe you will have Harriet Tubman, who is a kindred spirit of mine. So at least Jamaica embraces some of that matrilineal history, respects women to a certain degree. And yes, it was Colonel C.L.G. Harris, who was an inhabitant of Moortown. He knows that they are now called the Moortown Maroons. These were the Nanny Town Maroons, who are now known as the Moortown Maroons. He made a forceful presentation to the Senate in 1970, asking then Prime Minister Michael Manley to order cultural and historical research on me. This research was then spearheaded by Professor Kamal Braithwaite, who was a reader at the University of the West Indies. And his research and findings finally convinced them that I was not just a figment of imagination. How am I a figment of imagination when even the British annals tell you that they gave land? Did they give land to the mist? It says they gave land to me and my people. That was 1740. That's also why you know that the person who claimed that they killed me in 1733 was lying. Anyway, now that someone else who was educated validated my life, as though all the oral histories don't count for anything, Queen Nanny of the Windward Maroons became the 7th Jamaican to be conferred with the Order of National Hero. And I have been given the title of Right Excellent. Today, a portrait, which I've already told you is not of me.
This you're on the money.
Yes, it appears on the Jamaican 500 note, but I tell you what, every child in Jamaica has to learn about all the 7 heroes. And so they learn about me. What else can I tell you?
Can you delve a bit into the spiritual aspect, which I think oftentimes than not is missed out when we're discussing Africans and Africans of African descent? Because I think the center is often of just a person. That element of the spirituality is often just a bit part of that person rather than their wholeness. Because in underscoring who she was, you said we learn from nature, we learn to cohabit with animals, and as a result, that comes from somewhere. Could you speak more to that?
You people like to take very simple things and make them so complex that they confound you.
It's our education.
Listen, if you ever are in a strange place and you're trying to figure out what you can eat, just sit back and watch to see what are the birds eating, what are the other animals eating. The thing that they stay away from, you stay away from too. So when we talk about this spiritual aspect, it's not magic. It requires stillness. You people don't like stillness. You like to have everywhere noise, everything. So scatter everything. But when you're quiet, you can smell rain coming. Ask your elders. You can, and you say, rain is coming. And the clouds are not there, but you can smell it coming. There are signs and wonders. What are your scientists doing now with the telescope and this and this and that and that? They think that they need all of these things to see. We see when you're quiet. You follow the sun. You understand which side is east. You understand which side is west. You understand which side is north, which side. You look at the trees. However they're moving, you know this is the way the wind is blowing. The God that created the universe and everything that we can't see, that is the spiritual force that we're trying to connect with. That is the whole spirituality. You don't make that connection if you're not quiet. It's not the singing and all of that. Although music has its place. Music has its place. But there's a time for everything. You know, if you go and watch some traditional, what they now call masquerade dances, they will move like the animal. They will mimic. When you do that, now in psychology, they call it neuro-linguistic programming.
Yep.
That you can actually mimic a thing, take on even its mannerisms of breathing and everything, and you can now control that thing, or vice versa. So we take what is simple, that just requires quiet, things that even babies understand, and we acquire this knowledge that separates us from God, from creation. We eat things that do not feed us, that actually poison us. Yes, we use tobacco. I didn't bring my pipe, but I do have some of my herbs here. And we understood that anything we were dealing with, there was medicine for it. And we applied those things. We used that knowledge. So a lot of the myth making or whatever stories that they would tell, what set me apart, what will set any of us apart, and what will bring us all together is learning to be quiet again, to pay attention to look with the eyes of a child, not as in naivete, but as in purity, where you don't make things more complex than they are.
Yes. And you've just given us a very profound thoughts to play with. But what would be your abiding thought for us to go with, or call to action, as it were, in light of the times we live in, all over the world, that is?
What we have done before, we can do again. Did you hear me?
Yes, I do.
What we have done before, we can do again. There are people right now trying to strike fear within us. You know what they're doing? They're using our tactic against us. I told you we use psychological warfare. That is what they're using against us. So every day you people turn on that thing you turn on, or your little things you carry in your, and they tell you this person has done this again, or this person has come with another rule, or this, and every time you read it, fear grips your heart, and then you start running around like you don't know who you are. Oh my God, what to do. So they've already won psychologically because they have so confused you, and they have got you to believe in your inferiority, that you really have no hope. You have to know who you are. You have to know your history. You have to keep that hope. Because what we've defeated these people before, we will defeat them. Listen, how many years have we lived, and how many have they? How long have they been in power compared to how long we were in power? Let us not get confused. It's like when you find out these people, they're like 10% of the whole world. But they put stuff everywhere and make you think that they're the majority. And then you start, what do you people call yourselves? Some of you call yourselves minority. Imagine that they convinced you to call yourself a minority.
Yeah.
It's a psychological war. So, what is my abiding message? You have to heal yourself. We have to get strong in body, in mind, and spirit. What are you eating? How do you get quiet? When was the last time you were in nature? Start there, healing. When was the last time you just sat down with an elder and just let them talk, even if they tell you the same story? You know how some old people will tell you the same story, but if you listen, there are always some little variations each time they tell the story. Yeah. So keep listening. What is my abiding message? These people want your death. Call me whatever. What do I care what you call me? They want your death. Play around with them and you will die. Some of you. Because what I know about my ancestors is we are like seeds, and when you bury us, we will grow. We will not die. Understand that first Maroon War, 1728 to 1740, the American Revolution did not come till 1775. We are the ones who taught them, oh, the British can be killed. They can be overcome. The French Revolution didn't start till 1789. And the Haitian Revolution, not till 1791. And we know that the Haitian Revolution galvanized a lot of Africans who were in America, in the United States of America, to also rebel. We are all connected. But what we've done before, we can do again. But you must get your body strong. So I will give you some places you can go and read more about me. Any book on the Maroon, sometimes they'll mention me, sometimes they won't. White people like to write about me and they don't even know what they're One of the most famous books about me, written by a woman who was getting her PhD, and she found my name and she decided to get famous using my name, white woman. God bless her, because at least the story is still out there. It's called The Mother of Us All, A History of Queen Nanny, Leader of the Windward Jamaican Maroons by Carla
Gottlieb.
Yep, something like that. Then there's Queen of Freedom by Katherine Johnson. There's Nanny's Asafo Warriors, the Jamaican Maroons African Experience by Werner Zips. There's this one, which, oh my God, what a waste of your money. War to Destroy Slavery, A New Look at the African Jamaican Experience During the First Maroon War. I need to check to see when this... No, so this was written before ChatGPT. but my goodness, it looks like he took 4 ideas and then he just kept repeating them and repeating them and repeating them. Here's another one, very poorly written as well. Ancient African warrior queens, 14 real life stories of Africa's brave warrior queens. But all of these are entry points.
Yeah, breadcrumbs. So
And what it also says is,
there's a job to be done.
thank you. I can't get too upset at the white people who always look for ways to capitalize on us, especially if we won't do the work.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
So
if
that's all I
three,
have to say.
to buttress your point, if 3 or 4 people were to come together and say, listen, we're going to take aspects of Queen Nanny's life and we're going to write about it and bring it together and put it in a book form, that's that job done. And again, that's still an entry point, because just because you've covered 4 parts doesn't mean you've covered the entire scope of who the person is. But it's a continuous work. I mean, speaking with regards to books, Winston Churchill has been dead now for God knows how long.
Winston Churchill?
No, I'm just sort of giving you an understanding. Here is someone that we would find very abhorrent, but they continue to write books about them. Even if it's just the fact that he likes his drink, even if it's just the fact that he likes his pipe, they will write a book about it. So what they're doing is they're cementing that legacy in your mind. Regardless of what you think, you're still going to have that name reverberating in your head. So again, we can do the same thing. And we're not talking about just one person. There are multiple of people. And speaking of doing the same thing, next week, we're going to be looking at the life and times of Claudia Jones. Yes.
These are all my daughters. They are all my daughters. All these women who resist. And those of you who right now are doing the work to resist. I will leave you with the words of Elder Isaac Bernard, who is still alive, talking about the Cromanti language, if you will. And he says, Chamu chamu yatu. Let me not say too much. But this one here, this Queen Nanny, she's a young kum kum sassy. Other words, I was chosen by God. And so have we all, if we embrace it.
Thank you very much. And again, we've come to the end of another episode. This one was Queen Nanny, mother of the Maroons. We've learned so much from Sister Aya with regards to her life, her unique perspective on things, and essentially the fact that we have to claim our narratives. We can't leave them to gatekeepers as they were, because they won't do justice to our narratives. So do join us next week as we'll be looking at the life of, like I said, Claudia Jones, another daughter of the Caribbean. And she will also, let me save it for next week. Sister Aya?
And of course, because everybody needs to be liking and sharing. No, seriously, I wish I could immediately take this acrylic paint off my face. But seriously, again, the goal with all of this was to bring our stories alive and to get us to think a little bit more deeply about what's happened in the past, what the connections are, what we need to be doing today, because we all could be doing something, should be doing something. And so please share all the things. Leave comments, let us know.
Everywhere.
Let us know what's working and what isn't. And get your machete. Cell phone.
Yeah, your mother's cell phone. Which brand is that actually?
It's called the Obia.
Yeah.
No, actually they call it a bang. Of course, different groups use this in different ways, and there are ways that they open it and all of this. It's also used to drink palm wine.
Yeah.
So it's multifaceted,
Yeah. The Yorubas use they call it the Hausas call it kakaki. The Yorubas call it oh my God, look at me. Drawing a blank now. But essentially what they do is
come and get you.
Yeah. I mean my grandmother would be rolling in her grave right now. So essentially what they do is, stand on the top of a hill and, blow air through it, and based on the intensity of the blowing, that information is important for you to listen to. So
In my hometown, there's still people, there's still people who can beat a drum, and people can interpret. In fact, there was a book that I found. I'll need someone to help me go through it, but that depending on how they beat it, the timbre, all of that, someone else can interpret what is being said and then can beat and also send a message back. And imagine someone who's writing about it is like, in the middle of the night, these knucklehead Africans were just beating drums and keeping everybody awake and not even understanding that the whole time we were sending critical message to each other. We really need to get back to that. Thank you, Angie. Thanks, Sandra. Thanks, Lorna. Thank you all for watching.
Thank you all for watching. And again, a good night, everyone. That is it for this episode of Women and Resistance. Thank you for joining us in amplifying the voices of women who challenged injustice and changed the course of history. Be sure to subscribe, share, and continue the conversation. Together, remember, we honor the past, act in the present, and shape the future. Until next time, stay inspired and stay in resistance.